but it is also my it's kind of fun because he's actually here. Look at this. And like we can have like a hug. Like how amazing is that? Happy Earth Day, Coco.
Happy Earth Day to you as well.
I call him Coco, which is not professional for LinkedIn, but here we are. Cat's out. So Coco, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your trajectory and what you do now?
Cool. So my background is exploration robotics. I spent many years working on helping scientists build robotic systems to help them explore the world and better understand the environment that we live in. So I spent a lot of time building specifically underwater robots to help ocean conservationists, marine biologists, as well as like glaciologists and hydrologists to understand the hard to reach places and unexplored places of our ocean.
Glaciologists? You actually know glaciologists?
Correct.
What's like the name of one of them?
Geez, it's been a while. Is it the University of Minnesota? I think I forget. But Jean Prescu. There you go.
Hello, Jean Prescu.
But I think as part of Earth Day, I think it's super important to recognize and understand how beautiful our planet is, as well as how much we still don't know about it as well.
When did you realize that like conservation and protecting the Earth was an important thing for you to do, and you've also dedicated a lot of your life to that? So when did that? What happened that made you turn?
I think I was always very much interested by exploration and motivated by curiosity. I think that the turning point for me was really like in my undergraduate research. I realized that like I was building all these robots and amazing systems because I like building things, but exploring was one part of the piece of the puzzle, whereas like the environments to explore are constantly changing. I think the thing that really struck true to me was that like for ocean exploration, like we know the surface of the moon and the surface of Mars much better, much higher fidelity than we know what's on the bottom of the ocean.
That's wild. How does that happen? How can we know so much more about outer space than we do about our own planet?
So I think the challenge is that like inner space, as we like to call it, for our oceans, is super hard and inaccessible. Like whereas like the moon or Mars, you can have these satellites and probes that can continually map the entire surface of the planet. The ocean is pretty impenetrable. Like you have miles and miles of thick water, and the instruments and the sensing equipment that we have to be able to see to the bottom of it or really understand and visit the bottom. Like there's more people have been to the surface of the moon than to the deepest parts of our oceans.
Wow. Do you know like how many people have been to the bottom of the ocean?
Oh man.
Is it like a dozen?
Yeah, so like probably like a dozen or so.
Wow.
I mean, if you're talking about like some of the deepest parts, like Challenger Deep, it's pretty much like the Bathyscaphe Trieste folks and then James Cameron. Like that's pretty much it.
From Avatar, right?
Yeah,
the director.
Yeah.
He was an advisor of your the startup that you worked with, the OpenRov, right?
So I spent a lot of my time. So currently I'm at SpaceX helping develop rocket systems. But prior to that, I spent many years at OpenRov, or now called So Far Ocean Technologies, where we were really passionate about trying to figure out ways to make the ocean more accessible and build tools to enable scientists, citizen scientists, and everyday folks to connect and explore our ocean.
Here, I'm going to show a video, and maybe you can narrate through it. Although I do think that there might be some sweet music.
So what you're seeing is, so one of our community members took one of our underwater robots to go help out some shark marine biology researchers. Every year they go to the specific island off the Gulf of off Baja California to go see and check out the shark migration. And
wow, you get so close. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of these perceptions of like the creatures of the deep, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of that. Like sharks are they're very curious creatures. And so
did he just eat it?
Yeah.
Is that inside of his mouth?
Yeah, so this great white shark.
Where was the teeth?
It kind of just like bombed it. It's kind of
that was amazing.
Yeah, so I think essentially we were diving with this underwater robot and just checking out the shark, and the shark was really just checking out the robot. It's like, I saw, like, kind of like pumped it with his nose, like, what is this thing? Like, is it a seal? I probably can't eat it. It's definitely not a fish. It's very confusing. And just took a small little nibble, like a tentative, like, consider like a little kiss to figure out what it was. Ended up just spitting the robot back out. And it was totally fine, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Like, would the shark have gotten hurt if it ate the robot, do you think?
Probably not.
Did you guys think about that kind of stuff when you were making it?
Originally not.
Oh.
there's a lot of, I think the challenge with.
I appreciate the honesty.
No, and I think it's fair. Like the goal is to make it super robust and accessible to people, and people to use to explore the oceans. I think the challenge is that you can't necessarily predict every single use case, right? I think the cool thing that has happened from kind of like, say, maybe like taking a step back is like, yeah, the ocean is really hard to access. Like, let's say if you're talking about like the ocean on average is at least a few miles deep. And in terms of the amount of ocean that one can actually explore and understand, the footage that we typically see is a very shallow region of like what is accessible to us by scuba diving. That's only like the recreational scuba divers can only really go 60 feet, maybe 100 feet plus. If you get really, really fancy, you can go much deeper than that, but very few people are able to do so, and it's very dangerous as well. And then you're talking about using submersibles, underwater robots, or manned submersibles, and the number of those in the world is very few. There's only like a select handful of research institutions across the world that have access to these tools.
But one of the things that I loved about OpenRov is that like you actually like created the open part of it, the open source part of it, where there were kits so that like kids in schools and like I guess like a lot of like I've come to know that like a lot of like scientists and researchers don't have a lot of funding. So having like affordable equipment to be able to study and examine was one of the things that I thought was really interesting about OpenRov.
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges in conservation science is that unfortunately, like the number of people that are super passionate about protecting this one specific species or really understanding like the ecology and biology of these environments to best conserve them is a relatively small crowd of people that is working on this problem. And a big challenge is like, again, what tools do we have like to conserve? You have to understand and monitor and be able to like measure and see what the environment is like.
And as you think about like Earth Day, right? So there's the oceans, but the oceans really affects like so much more of the rest of the planet and is part of what keeps us really healthy, right? But like how else and what other projects, have you been involved with that think about the environment and climate change?
I think the oceans is definitely a big like another thing is like it's like the blue heart of the planet. Like it is kind of the source, like the oceans and like to say the ecosystems that support within it. It's not just the fish, but all the plankton. Like most of the oxygen in the atmosphere is from all the algae and like all the algae in the oceans, right? Other projects that I've kind of been involved in that are also like kind of more directly related to climate change is I had the privilege of working on a project and leading a project where we were trying to help scientists better understand like how long do we have before the Western Antarctic ice sheet collapses. I think it's not a question of like,
oh yeah, you're in Antarctica.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I think the challenge is that I was really passionate about like exploration, but what became very real very quickly was that everything like what there is to explore is changing so quickly on our planet. Like the unknown unknowns out there. There's so many new species that we may never see because they may have disappeared before we had a chance to ever discover or see them. And the same thing goes for all these environments as well. Like and like in Antarctica, there's only recently discovered there's actually hundreds, if not thousands, of these subglacial lakes hiding out underneath the ice sheet. It's not just pure ice. You actually have this network of all these lakes and streams underneath the continent of Antarctica. And it hasn't touched the atmosphere for millions of years, which makes for this kind of very unique environment where it's almost like kind of an alien environment where who knows what sort of creatures and biology could exist in these extreme environments. Kind of one of the most fascinating things about our planet is that everywhere we look, even the most extreme places, we find life and we find interesting new ecosystems and worlds that that kind of defy any possible convention. Like these extremophiles keep on showing up in places that are extremely unexpected. So as part, so like yeah, like Antarctica and conserving these environments is really just like holding on to the slice of this interesting biodiversity and these beautiful worlds that are just so unique.
I have hard questions, and because I know you and you love me and I can ask them and we're still going to be cool, I'm going to ask them. Like, so one thing I want to know is like, do our individual actions, like when I recycle a water bottle, like how much impact does that actually make for helping the planet?
I think it's hard. So one of the hard things about sustainability and conservation is that like I think like true sustainability is kind of a very challenging thing to do, right? Let's say you taking that water bottle or drinking that water bottle, and even if you recycle that water bottle, like the plastic and energy that was used to make that water bottle was consumed, and it's a significant amount, right? It is inherently unsustainable to use single-use plastic bottles, right? Again, that being said, if you change it for like a reusable bottle, like that
also has energy.
It still has energy. It still has embedded energy, but you use it a lot more. So like, let's say if you use that reusable bottle thousands of times, that amount of energy is now split between all those different uses. But it's still like the energy and the resources that are used to make that first bottle still significant.
I found that actually, like, I mean, for me, I kind of feel like my individual actions, they're so small because I'm just one person. But like, as I've started to, I mean, you know, a long time ago, but like, as I've started to change my like daily behaviors, then I find that I become more vocal, right? And I become more, you know, more active and influential with the people around me. You know, sort of like really looking at policies and voting for people who can make really big decisions, you know, that will actually, that can actually make big changes fast.
Yeah, I think
which is what we need, right?
For sure. I think that the things on the individual level, like, yeah, it may seem trivial to just like recycle bottles or do these small actions, but I think the most important thing is like setting a culture and tone of like sustainability and conversation. Like, it needs to be part of the culture for it to be effective. Like, as you said, like I think the things that have significant impact is like policy decisions and how we set up infrastructure to support more sustainable practices. But in order to get there, like how do you lobby for such a thing if it's not part of the culture? So I think every person's individual action still is very important because that is still like forward progress towards setting a tone and moving towards a society where we are more conscientious and taking active measures to be more considerate in how we use resources.
Have you ever like met or had like you know, hard conversations with people who like just don't believe in climate change? And if so, like how did that go? And you know, how do you take that?
I think it's really challenging. I think a big challenge is still education. Like, I think especially there's a crazy disconnect for me. It's like having spent time in Antarctica as well as very directly worked on seeing like direct evidence of like, wow, like Pine Island Glacier is like disappearing. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've talked to the scientists that are very directly measuring these things, and like kind of having this very visceral firsthand experience of like the effects of climate change on these environments. Like I think you have to approach it with kind of a graciousness and understand that not everyone may have the perspective or context to understand how the world is changing. The best thing is to like find common ground, and then it's like kind of like just like state the facts of what is happening, right? I think in the scientific community, like the consensus is pretty much unanimous that like clearly something is happening that is very drastic and unprecedented before. So like when I meet someone, I try to start off with like, it's like, hey, well, like what about like we're seeing these effects, like, or like if you're looking at the ice sheet thicknesses or these glaciers receding, like this is pretty direct visual evidence of these changes that are occurring on our planet.
And right now you're working at SpaceX, right? So, and there's a lot of, I mean, I think SpaceX is really just a fascinating, wonderful, you know, wonderful sort of like flex of human possibility. Like when we got to actually see a rocket how far were we at Vandenberg?
I think we're like 10 miles away or so.
10 miles away, and like, you know, you feel the earth move and you watch this like huge object, this rocket, like go up into the sky, and it was beautiful and amazing, you know. But like we've had friends who have really challenged you and like, why spend your time, you know, trying to like leave Earth, right? Like what's the point of that?
Well, I think it's not so much like I think SpaceX's mission is fundamentally like to explore space and make this human species interplanetary. I think that's a very long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal is to not see that as a escapism, as a form of like very technologically advanced escapism. Like I think like planet Earth is nice. Don't get me wrong, or get any of us wrong. Like this is the place that we are most suited to live in. Like trees, the oceans, land. Like we have all the resources that make us happy and can support us and our civilization and society. I think space is like eventually it's a long-term goal where we'd like to be. Like the thing is like why not explore far and see where we can go? But I think like this pale blue dot is all that we have, and it's really important that we do our best to. I think it's like why not explore is a better question of like why explore at all. It's just like
also I think that like, I mean, now we have like more, you know, imagery of the Earth and learning about other geologies and other, you know, constructs and other planets and galaxies help us understand our planet more.
Yeah, I think there's like, you know, hanging out with like geologists or glaciologists or especially cosmologists. Like there's a very different perspective when you start to look at the world, not just from like a human perspective and time frame, but like if you're looking at the world and these ecosystems evolving or changing over thousands, millions of years, and you're looking at space, and it gives you the perspective of like, wow, like Earth is really, really, really special, right? I think by looking out and exploring it further, it really contextualizes of like how unique and special our planet is. That it has all these things. It has an atmosphere. It has all these rich natural resources. And ecosystems. Like it is a very beautiful, unique thing, and as far as we can tell, the only thing like it in the universe that we have seen so far. So we really have to like treasure this thing, and if anything, like exploring and looking outwards makes us more appreciate what we have inwards towards our planet and ourselves.
Yeah, and like I think it's our 50th year anniversary of Earth Day, right? So like I almost like think it could be really cool imagining what is it like in 50 years from now, in 2070, right? Like we're celebrating Earth Day, or like your generation, you know, next generation is celebrating Earth Day, like from Mars. Like there would be like Happy Mars Day, Happy Moon Day, right? I kind of love that idea a lot, actually. So, okay, so you're actually like a legitimate rocket scientist, right? And actually, and I'm an event producer, and people are always like, event planning isn't rocket science. So what I thought, like just to close this out and to play a little bit of a game sorts, is so in actually celebration of Earth Day and Happy's commitment to sustainability and achieving mass adoption of sustainable best practices, we launched our exam today. So I'm going to give you like a pop quiz and ask you some things that we that are from our exam that we are also asking our team, our network of event specialists, and see how you do. Yeah. What do you think you're going to get?
I have no idea.
I think you'll do okay. Actually, you're a pretty smart guy. So okay, which of these is most damaging to the environment? Air conditioning a 20 by 20 room or powering up a 20 by 20 room?
Well, every outlet can support up to 1800 watts, but I would assume that like to fill an air conditioned space is like a very that's I guess a lot of energy. So I would say air conditioning a room.
Ding 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 ding. That would be correct. Good job. Okay, so this one I'm sure you actually know. So which of these options leads to a better environmental outcome? Ordering the perfect amount of food or composting all the leftover food?
Ordering for sure. want to reduce as much as you can.
Right. So this one's a little tricky. And for all of our questions, we also provide reference materials so that there's some learning as well, deep learning involved. So how much energy is saved by using an LED light instead of a fluorescent bulb?
If you're assuming a typical fluorescent bulb is 60 watts and the LED one is like 3 to 5. So you're saving like, 90%.
Actually, that's incorrect.
Oh,
a fluorescent bulb is 50%, whereas an incandescent is
sorry, I was thinking of incandescent.
60.
Okay, so yeah, it's a good question, but I think that's totally fair.
Sometimes our planners get mad at us for having really hard questions, but we just want to make sure that, they're actually reading closely.
Incandescent versus fluorescent versus LED.
Okay. So let's see. You want to do one last question?
Sure.
How about, I'm going to see if I can find like a really tough one. Okay, this is another math one. For a 100-person event, how much water can you save if you change the main course from beef to vegetarian?
I know like the water use impact of plant versus meat is like significant, at least in order of magnitude. So I would say probably more.
So the options are 2, 5, 10, 20, and 30.
I would say 20x.
It's 30. It's actually 33
when
I did the calculation. It's a lot.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's crazy how much like maybe going with Earth Day, it's like I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding your own environmental footprint and impact. Like that's just something that I became much more cognizant of and like being more aware of, and it's actually super challenging. Like there's a lot of information that you have to digest and learn and understand to be more conscientious of like what you're actually consuming and using. Like some things, it's like it's like it's like from this, it's like if you went vegetarian but you drove a Hummer versus if you ate meat and drove a Prius, you're better off driving a Hummer and being a vegetarian.
Or getting a Cybertruck.
But I think a lot of these trades, if you're looking at it gets complicated because you're looking at water use, you're looking at land use, you're looking at carbon footprint, you're looking also at other greenhouse gas emissions. Like there's a lot of things and pieces to the puzzle. And so like what you'd call like what is more sustainable, it's there's a lot of different factors in the equation.
Yeah, but taking any step and any measurement to be more thoughtful and some more considerate and careful of the earth. Again, Earth Day is every day. Then we'll like slowly but surely, I'll get there, right?
No, for sure. I think the big thing is like just like wanting and understanding that we do have the ability and the power in our hands to make big changes that can significantly like change our impact on the environment, but also like will eventually move to like greater societal impact on how we treat the environment. Yeah, no, I'm really excited for all of that to come, and together we'll make it happen, right? And also together we shall get married. Just a few days before. This is like my last video as like a single person. Oh, man. And you too. Yeah. So we're having a cyber wedding and we're really excited. There's gonna be tons of surprises. This virtual event has been bananas to like change. You can also see like our things are like starting to like, our house is starting to slowly change. But we're really excited, and if you can come. It's going to be public and on our wedding website, which is cocoshew.com, COCOSHEW. Watch us crazy kids get married, and in any case, please be healthy, be safe, be happy, love yourselves, and love the planet too. Thanks. Bye. Take care.